Something called Legionnaires' disease has been back in focus this summer. The health unit in the London area is trying to trace the source of an outbreak of the severe pneumonia that's left one person dead and made more than 30 others sick. Let's discuss this a little bit more with Dr. Nicola Mercer, the medical officer of health for Wellington, Dufferin, Guelph. Dr. Mercer, great to see you. Thanks for making time for us as always.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
I was thinking the common name of this disease sounds familiar. First of all, can you tell us why it's called Legionnaires and remind us generally what this illness is?
Yeah, this is a really interesting disease because it's the first one that I know of that was ever named after a conference. So back in 1976, there was a large gathering of people who belonged to the American Legion, and they were at a hotel. And after that conference of about 2,000 people, we had about 200 people get really sick, and actually quite a number of them were hospitalized, and ultimately 34 people died. And after that, it took them about 6 months to find what was the organism that was causing this, and it became Legionnaire's disease.
And so what are the symptoms of this disease, and how would you broadly describe it?
Well, the symptoms are actually just like any other case of community-acquired pneumonia. So people usually present to hospital with pneumonia symptoms. So they are short of breath, they have a fever, they're coughing, and they're usually quite ill. And it's only when we investigate and we rule out other quite common causes of community-acquired pneumonia that Legionnaire's disease becomes the diagnosis. And you can have it quite mild, though, and not present to hospital. We have a different name for that, but it is still the same bacteria.
And so the alert about this particular outbreak in the London area speaks to something that I think we can touch broadly on, and that is that the overall risk to the public is low. So on one hand, we hear about it being a potentially severe pneumonia and potentially fatal, but on the other hand, we get that messaging that the overall risk is low. Why is that?
Yeah, it's a very interesting disease. So this one is actually not spread person to person, and almost every other disease I'm here talking about, like measles or anything else, usually goes person to person. But this is a disease you get in the environment. So it actually usually resides in man-made water reservoirs. So when we look at this disease, what we often find is we get the odd case. In fact, it's really common, especially in the summer season, that as a medical officer of health, that I will get a case here and there. We never know where it comes from. But on occasion, and not rare, but on occasion, we do get these outbreaks. And it can be really tricky to find where is the source, where are all these people contacting this bacteria that is usually breathed in through the air, and that makes people sick.
Well, when it comes to detection, officials are also telling doctors to, consider this type of bacteria when someone shows up with lower respiratory tract symptoms. How often is this something that would be investigated more deeply, would you say?
Well, it's often on what we call the differential diagnosis as physicians. So usually it's easy to rule out all the more common causes of pneumonia. But if you have somebody who's over the age of 50, a smoker, lung disease, it's during the month, particularly the summer months and up to October, it sort of gets to be a little bit higher on the differential diagnosis as to one of those diseases that could be acquired, especially in the summer season. So it's not that hard once you think of it to make the diagnosis, but it wouldn't be the most common source of pneumonia.
Right. I guess my final question would be, if there is a way of answering this even, why does this only seem to come up from time to time? Because I had to sort of jog back in my memory and think about what Legionnaire's disease was when I heard about this particular outbreak in the London area.
Yeah, it's a very interesting disease because it is an environmental disease. So we actually see it, as I said, in man-made water reservoirs. So think cooling towers, air conditioners, fountains, showers, hot tubs, pools, those kind of places. So they're all the things that you don't really think of. And if they're not properly cleaned or maintained, and then they're a source of what we might call biofilm. You might have heard that word. And so occasionally they'll get aerosolized. And when people get it, it causes lots of people to get sick, as is happening right now in the London area. They can be really sick. It's rare, but when it happens, it really does raise questions, and it's hard to find the source. And sometimes the source is, cooling tower, something that can make a lot of people sick that we have to find.
Okay, something to keep in mind, and very good information, especially at this time of year where we see heightened gatherings and more people getting together in big groups. Dr. Nicola Mercer, Medical Officer of Health for Wellington, Dufferin, Guelph. Always appreciate your expertise. Thank you so much.
And thank you.